I moved to England, so I'm one of those people that left the country to be educated and to work. And I was really fortunate that very early on I got to return back to Ireland and to work in the Republic of Ireland, which would have been very important to me in my career choice. And there, of course, as all of us happened, we sat down and family came along. So I was living in Northern Ireland on the border, literally with County Donegal. My first place to work was actually in Showen, a beautiful, beautiful part of the country. I'm not saying anything about Letterfrack, but it's an absolutely stunning county. And we are really fortunate in this region to have stunning counties, and hopefully we'll touch on that. I just want to quickly, if you want, go through maybe what our responsibilities are, because not a lot of people will know the Northern Western Regional Assembly and what we do, and then just to go through the regional strategy, talk about some of the regional issues, and then the regional asks that we would have. So the Northern Western Regional Assembly is the area, the blue, if I could call it that, on the map in the north and west. So it's the Northern and Western Regional Assembly. As we say, we cover Connacht and Ulster, but we quickly say the 3 counties of Ulster is in the Republic of Ireland, as opposed to the 6 in the north of Ireland. But we have actually touched very nicely on some of the issues I think is really important. And that's the collaborative working, integrated development, integrated thought processes, working with our communities, working with clusters, working on a cross-border basis is all really, really important for the Northern and Western region, because we have the significant part of the border with the north of Ireland. So what is it that we do? I suppose, first of all, if you look at where we are, there's the 3 regional assemblies, the Northern Western, there's the Eastern one, which includes Dublin, and then you have the Southern region, that would have been seen in that map previously. We have a population of around just over 900,000. There's 8 counties in our region, that's 9 local authorities, population density 35 per kilometre squared. So one of the big issues in our region will be a weak urban structure, and obviously the demographics as well. So we're an ageing population, and that's not unique to the Northern and Western region. When we look at the work that we do, we try to put it into 3 categories for people to get a bit of a feel for it. We look at doing better places. So what we're looking at there is trying to ensure that the policies that we have for planning and economic development are a good fit for this region, that we can learn from best practices internationally and apply them then locally. We do this at a regional level through working with our colleagues in the department who are responsible for the national policy on planning and economic development. And we try to ensure that we are able to feed up from the community, up through the local government sector, to the department on what we feel is good for this region. But also then we have the national planning framework, and we have to ensure that we implement and amplify the provisions in the national planning framework at a regional level, and that's where the Northern and Western Regional Assembly fit in. So we make sure that we're able to apply the national policy, and then it's the responsibility of the county councils and the city councils to ensure that they provide their policy frameworks that are consistent with the regional, spatial and economic strategy. Obviously that then means that what you're doing is you're having the cascade from the national level down, and that's not unusual, that's fairly straightforward, I think, internationally as well. The other thing that we try to ensure is that the public bodies, and this is a little bit of a tricky part in trade, we're a regional body, but then you have central government departments that will have their policies and programmes of work. And we try to ensure that they are informed by our regional, spatial and economic strategy. And we do that through the submissions that we would make whenever we'd be part of their stakeholder groups, and we'd make comments and feedback to them on their policies to try to ensure that everything is integrated in the way it's been developed. And there are some issues that I will probably point out to later on. And the other thing that we do is we try to enhance the competitiveness of this region through the EU funding that is available and through the Exchequer funding. So we try to ensure that the stakeholders in this region are able to access the funds, and we will advise and guide them on that also. And then we are what we call the platform for collaboration. So we're the go-to places. So for example, if the Department of Transport are looking to have consultations or discussions or roll out their programmes, they do tend more than often come to us now at the regional level, because we have the contacts then at the local level as to how that works. And the other one would be DETI, which is the department that would be responsible particularly for the climate action plan. And I suppose we're very much part of that as well as our parent department being the planning one. So all of those things actually, I think, chime very well with some of the comments you've been making this morning on, when you're looking at it at a community level. We're just doing it at a different level. I think our background would be very much from the local government sector, working as I have for 35 years with local authorities before I came to this job. And it's learning from that experience of integrated development. And it's one of the issues I think that maybe we should be conscious of, is this thing of working in silos, working in departments. Nobody actually looking at how to pull the whole issues together. That's as important as at a community level, where that's happening to your community groups, as it is at a county level or a city level, as it is at a regional and at a national level also. So we have adopted the regional spatial and economic strategy. So the regional instruments, as we talk about them, is the planning and economic policy, which is my background. I'm a planner, an urban and regional planner by background. But also we have the Northern Western Regional Programme 21 to 27. I just want to take a quick look, if we can, into the regional spatial and economic strategy, just to give you a few of the outcomes from that. I mean, I suppose, as I said, it implements and amplifies the national policy. It's a 12-year plan with a vision to 2040, so that's tying in with the national policy. And we do not just try to implement the policies that are in there through all of our stakeholders, whether it's the ATU, or whether it's the departments, or whether it's the local authorities, or whoever, but we also try to monitor that performance. So every 2 years we have to prepare a report that goes to NOAC, which is an oversight committee at a national level, and we will advise on how we are implementing the policies at a regional level through the discussions that we have with the local authorities, with the ATU, with the public bodies. And that's particularly important, I suppose, in the current legislation, where the public bodies feed into that. So we're coordinating and we're collaborating all the time, and that's a very significant part of the work that we intend to do. And we also then have a regional development monitor. So we have moved on, and the stats are there, so we've developed the IT expertise to be able to provide reports on how the region is performing. One of the things that is really important, and why I touched on it, so that there's no bias and people know where I come from. When we were looking at the regional spatial and economic strategy, we were saying, look, we're talking about communities here. We're not talking about our administrative area. Okay, the Northern Western Region 7, we can only do a plan that actually is legally binding on the region, the administrative region of our area. But if we actually realise what we're talking about our communities, we're talking about our clusters and our catchments, so it's different. We don't recognise the boundaries. So in this map, you will see that the influence that we have seen in our catchments, we said that there's 6 in this region, and they do flow over effectively into adjoining counties, into adjoining jurisdiction in the north of Ireland, in particular for the border area, But also you'll see down in the south where we're saying, well, you've got Galway, but really there's a big connection down into Limerick as well. So we have to, I think, wise up to the fact that we're not just working as administrators on a boundary, but we're actually talking about people and communities. And the type of diagram that comes from that actually came from looking at the patterns, the commuting patterns for work, for leisure, for going to schools, healthcare, etc. So this region that we're involved in, I mean, you speak about Inishowen. Inishowen, I think it took me probably 4 hours to get down here. But Galway is the centre of excellence from the hospital perspective. Galway University is another place where people have traditionally come, and now we have the ATU, which I think is something that we're championing in our region spatial and economic strategy, because we felt it was really, really important to be able to have the ATU up and running, and that has been a particular success of everyone concerned over this last number of years. And I suppose I would have been in the Donegal area, and there's a cross-border connection with the University of Ulster, and that has all been nurtured, and you can see how that's developing on an all-island basis, which is an incredible journey, I think, that the ATU have set out on. The region as well, just in case you're thinking of it, we have some of the best skilled people, we feel, in the world, as everybody does in the region spatial and economic strategy. We have some of the biggest companies internationally here in this region. So we have about, I think I'm just trying to read, about 200 multinational companies. I mean, that's quite significant for an area of this size, who are supported by the IDA, the Industrial Development Agency, employing 40,000 people. The local enterprise offices, the Western Development Commission, Údras na Gaeltachta, they all provide extensive supports to all the firms in this region. And that is something I think that is particularly important also, is to see the role of the universities and the research and innovation. It's very important for the firms to be able to have access to this kind of support. We've already mentioned, I didn't deliberately put any pictures of our region. It's an absolutely fantastic region. You could really and truthfully say that you could put a picture of any part of this region and say it's spectacular. It is a very special place to work. It's a very special place to work in. It has got fantastic quality of life. It's internationally renowned. It's beautiful landscapes. It's got, I think, everything that you could ask for. On the tourism side of things, we have a very healthy tourism sector in this region, but we do not have it as strong as it would be on the southern half of the country. Now, that can be a benefit because it's not overrun to a large extent, but there is huge potential in the northern western region to further develop our tourism potential. We have, as you would all know, the Wild Atlantic Way, which is up along the west coast of Ireland, that runs right through our region. But we also have the hidden heartlands, which is the middle part of Ireland, that has got some fantastic lakes up the Shannon, leading right up into the north. And previously you would have had the canal over to Portadown, Lurgan in Northern Ireland up towards Belfast, and that is a project that has been financed by government and is advancing at a fantastic pace as a tourism asset, and there's another section being opened tomorrow, so hence my gig for tomorrow. But we have a really rich history of the landscape and the culture and everything coming together in this region. So it is a fantastic asset for us. And then I suppose just on that one, sort of overlapping, but the growth sectors that we have, I think are ones that you will imagine. Energy, marine, life sciences. The financial services is very significant as well, the creative economy, tourism, agri-food, fantastic region for food industry and education. They're the growth sectors that we see in the region's based on economic strategy. We're about to have the review of the national policy next month, if I'm not premature in saying that, going to be out for consultation, and then we start our region's based on economic strategy all over again. It's always cyclical, as you can imagine, but we're actually working with the leaders in this region, including the universities, to try and look at what our sectors are, how they're changing, look into the future and seeing what is coming down the track in another 15, 20 years that we need to be looking at now. And that's the type of work that we have to get involved in. It's really difficult in the current environment that we're at to be talking of 15, 20 years down the line, 30 years down the line, because everybody wants the decision now, everybody wants everything done now, everything is immediate, and unfortunately it can be knee-jerk reaction. So it's really important the type of work that we're doing collaboratively as organisations in this public sector environment for the future of our regions. And to have, I think, the best in class actually looking at the future and guiding us along, because we're a small organisation as an assembly, but it's actually the people and the contacts that we have that is really, really important. So we're sort of coordinating and collaborating very much. Just a few things on that. I'm a planner, so you're gonna have to have the maps again. Galway is our metropolitan city in this region, and then we see that we have Sligo and Letterkenny and Athlone, which is on the border with us. It's a half and half, it's a shared space. We see them as performance city-like functions, but at a much smaller scale. And then in the case of Letterkenny, Derry and Strabane is recognised as being the Northwest City region. So it's a cross-border, so the major urban area is Derry in the north of Ireland, but it is very much tied with Letterkenny. It's across it. You know, up in Donegal, they're a mixed breed, as we would say, and we see that as outsiders to the Donegal from our living. It's very much cross-border. They don't really recognise the border so much, which is what you would expect, I suppose, to some extent. But it introduces difficulties from my perspective at a regional level, to ensure that timing is everything, and that you don't put your foot in and say something that would cause a particular issue in another jurisdiction. So that's the Northern Ireland, I suppose, piece there that our government has been working very strongly with the Northern Assembly and with the UK government on the huge improvements that we have seen. So whenever we look at it from a regional level, we're saying, well, look, we all sort of know what we need is the urban centres of scale to be able to bring employment into a region. So it will identify the towns, the cities, etc. But then you have all of the other communities as well. So, I mean, I suppose when we look at our region, we're trying to deliver a smarter, greener and a more connected region. So you will find that we have the 5 ambitions there: the vibrant region, which will be looking at the whole environment, the natural region, looking at the assets, the natural assets that we have, and how they can be harnessed, how their potential can be harnessed. It's sustainable development we're talking about, so obviously we're not looking at destroying our natural environment. They're our assets, so we need to harness the potential of them. And I suppose over here we have what's called special areas, the SAC, special conservation areas, you know, where you've got your habitats that are protected at the European level. And there is that thought of, oh gosh, they're a nuisance and they're causing us difficulty. They're not. That's our future. That's what we need to be protecting and conserving. But we also need to be able to harness what that is. And I suppose the tourism sector is one in particular that's easy to identify how it is doing that. The National Planning Framework has been revised, I've mentioned that. One thing I would say is that the European Commission have actually identified the northern and western region as a region in transition. That's not good news for this region. And this is where I'm trying to dabble this with a few comments that I hope might pick up and reverberate over the next couple of days. Is that okay? I'm not being controversial. I'm not slagging off government, the current government. I will be saying issues in relation to systemic failures of government over decades. If I could go into it in that perspective. But our GDP is between 75% and 100% of the EU average in this region. It's the only region in Ireland that has that. Now, accepting that GDP may skew things in Ireland, we have a few facts. So we would actually say that the GDP in the northern western region isn't really impacted by the international trade per se. But we just set that aside, I suppose, so that we don't get into too much controversy. I think this diagram here has been one that is really, really informative for us. So, the European Commission Regional Competitiveness Index 2022. It's looking at the NUTS 2 regions, and it's looking at our region. And it sees that we have a weak region in terms of the market size. So, the northern western region, I don't know if it's showing up very well, I think better from your angle than it is from me, is the purple. So you'll see the purple, if you can say, about maybe 3 o'clock and the 8 o'clock once coming together. So the market size is here on the left. We have a problem with our market size, and we know that. So that is why on the region spatial and economic strategy that we are looking to ensure that the urban centres of scale are up, that we have an ambition to grow our urban centres. On the other side is infrastructure. In terms of infrastructure, there's 234 regions in the EU. Would you believe it? The northern western region is 218th in terms of infrastructure. The infrastructure provision, there's a deficit. Ireland was the 9th most competitive region in the EU. The eastern region, which is the one that includes Dublin, so it's a stronger one, it was ranked 24th of the 234 EU regions. And the northern and western regions ranked 113th. So within that you can see that there are gaps arising in Ireland. Ireland is performing very well, but within Ireland there are gaps in the performance. And I think that is something that we need to be very conscious of. And I suppose when you look at it then at a European context, you can see that we're sharing that with countries in Eastern Europe, including places like Romania. And this is some of the concerns we have for this region, which I think is important just to point out. When you look at the infrastructure we're talking about, I suppose the roads and the rail are the two key ones. On the left you will see the roads that we have in our regional spatial and economic strategy. They're looking for upgrade. These are roads where when you're looking at a national level, you're trying to ensure that you have the urban centres of scale, you have good connectivity obviously within those urban centres, but also you need good connectivity between the urban centres. And in the northern and western region, we have some very significant deficits. Now, part of that could be what they call back-to-back planning. You know, the north of Ireland obviously was looked on in one way by the UK government, and the Irish government then obviously were looking at it from the point of view of the Republic of Ireland. Donegal up in the northwest and Sligo, as you'll see, all roads leading to them, not really. And then you look at rail and you see the same story. Now, I could put other ones up, looking at our ports and looking at the infrastructure, the electricity infrastructure as well, and that would show a very similar story. We have the rail review that has been done on an all-island basis, absolutely fantastic news, but it's not really delivering between, can I say, Derry and Galway to the same extent as you would expect. But I think rail is something that is very important. It's very future facing, but it will take time to deliver. So within this region we have issues of accessibility, and I would suggest that could be part of the reason why we're performing the way we are, in accordance with the OECD documentation. So then when you look at the regional allocation of future infrastructure that has been provided at a national level, we see that in this region our population is about 17.6% of the national population. We're actually being provided with 13.7% according to the information that we have taken ourselves from the tracker information is provided by government. So there seems to be a particular issue emerging in relation to the infrastructure provisions in this region. The consequences of it. So I said I wouldn't dwell on the GDP because some can say, well, that's not actually a good figure. So we've taken a look at the median household disposable income. I think I've fairly gone through the slides. I think I'll move faster maybe on this, but I think there again you will see the northern region is lagging significantly behind 84%. This is in 2020, 2021, 2022 and 2023. But just can you see the difference here? The northern and western region 2020 was 84%, then it was 83, and down to 80. And meanwhile, in the eastern region, it's holding its own 114. It went down to 112, but again at 114 and 114. The gap's growing. And then when you look at the population growth between 2016 and 2020, you'll see we have grown 6.8%, but we're not growing at the same rate as the other regions. It's the Eastern and Midland region, it's the Dublin region that is galloping ahead on us. The southern region is there in red. And when you look at the Eastern Midlands region share of the population, again, you see that the percentages going up. Northern Western region, the percentages going down. So I think that they're just issues that maybe just to be thinking of in the context of the work that we're doing over the next couple of days. And in truth, this is something, any feedback is particularly welcome from my perspective on international best practice, etc., as to how to address this. And can I say that I personally do not take it that it's a slight on the northern western region. It's people working in departments doing the best that they are meant to do under their remit. But I think there is a question to me as to who is looking at the impact it's having from a regional development perspective. Everybody is doing perhaps the right thing within their own silo. But if they look over their shoulder and see what the impact is that the impact that they really want to have? So I think that's something that we have been bringing to government, and I'll mention that later on also. And here's the issue, I think, that everybody needs to be aware of: the trust in national government and where it's heading. And why is it heading that way? And is this possible? Are people just fed up? Are people getting to the stage that they're saying, and by the way, from a planner and from a sociological perspective, my learning would be yes, that would have been my training back in the 80s, that the people would have said you need to be very careful as to what the economic impact can have on communities, on people, and on politics, which is something that we need to be conscious of. So it's not particularly satisfying to see percentages like that on satisfaction with government, and that's not a party. That's government. That is the broad thrust of everything that goes with that. So we did hold. We have actually at a regional assembly level. We are trying to articulate this to government. We did have the opportunity to meet with Leo Varadkar in December in Monaghan. He actually spent a full morning with his son, and he was particularly taken by that. Now that would be our former Taoiseach, and he got it, and it was of concern. And having said that, I'm wise enough to know that one has to be careful at a political level as well, that there could be other areas of the other regions that are suffering similar to what the northern and western region is suffering. So it's not an easy cure for anybody. But what we're suggesting is that really and truly we need to be delivering infrastructure projects in the northern and western region of Ireland that are already identified. So we don't have to identify them. They're already out there, they're in the booth, they're in the policy. Just deliver them, pull them forward. Increase the level of capital investment that you're giving to us. For projects, I think, of scale. I'm not saying that there's not good investment in this region, but it's the projects of scale that are really, really necessary for this region. Perhaps we need to be reforming the project appraisals, and trying to ensure that it reflects the ambition that there is, the gap is not allowed to grow any further, that we have regional equity. And we're looking at the ERDF funding, and we're suggesting that really and truly for the next range post 2027 we should be ensuring that there's more of it coming into this region, because that's what it's about, this cohesion fund. So that's where it should be. We also have got into a space that I don't think is particularly for today, but it's talking about regional autonomy. It's talking about improving the ability of the local and regional bodies to deliver the investment in the northern and western region. It's a very centralised system that we work at in Ireland. It's a different model, but just looking at some of the stats that are out there, Ireland has 10% of its expenditure actually dealt with at the local level. It's a very centralised model that we're working to. So I just want to, on the final slide, to say we are advocating very strongly at a regional level for this region. And within this region we see it integrated development is what's important. And it chimes really well with the discussions that you've had this morning. And the work that we're doing at the regional assembly level, truthfully, it is a fantastic place to work with fantastic stakeholders, we would call them, or people that are working in different sectors that we're reaching out to. And they're there and they're informing us, you're guiding us, you're giving us, if you want, the best practice elsewhere. And we're all working together collaboratively in this, and there's some fantastic work going on, but we have to recognise then what the trends are. I don't think these trends are particularly different than perhaps other regions or other countries, like Canada. Maybe they have the same issues. But how do we get those in power to actually see what is happening and to try and change the way we do business? And as the bottom-up approach is something that we all advocate. But I think in truth, as somebody that's sitting in the sandwich in the middle, we're the meat in the middle, we're at a regional level, you do need those that are at community level to be implementing the policies of national government. You can't, to me, have national government setting where we want to go, and then when you get through the regional level and the county level, the county going and doing its own thing. We all need to be facing in the same direction. I think that is critical, and that is something that I do know at a national level we've been trying to grapple with, and there's a new planning bill that I haven't been into, where there's more significant changes coming through that will ensure that there is that cascade down, and that there is, if you want, policy coherence, and that's very important. So with that, I hope that there's some things chime with you for the next couple of days, and if there's feedback on that, I very much welcome it. I would say, Gormili Magov, it's an absolute pleasure for me to have opened this today, and I really do hope that you enjoy yourselves, as well as learning from each other, because the enjoyment and the learning are a really, really good mix.